Rent control is another hot topic, which people think can solve a lot of problems, while others think it's going to cause a lot more problems. I already know where you lie, so let me just kind of set the table here. Rent control, for people who don't know, is it's exactly what it sounds like. A city ordinance or whomever can make that decision and go, rent cannot go above this price in this building. Now, if I owned multiple properties, the argument for that is obviously people with lower income, and it's a way to fight off gentrification, and it's a way for people to stand a chance and fight against rising rent costs for whatever reasons, greed and whatever. That's a good thing about rent control. I myself live in a rent-controlled building, so,
Right.
Thank you. However, the flip side is, and I don't know how true this is, but this is what I hear. Rent control is going to artificially increase the rents of the other buildings that aren't rent controlled, because not every building in the like in a neighborhood or like the town is rent controlled. So whatever building isn't rent controlled is going to be up higher to make up for the loss of the rent control. How accurate is that? You give me a look like I'm crazy here. Please,
No,
debunk that, please, because I don't want that to be true.
no, it's not true. If anything, it's gonna help reduce. It's gonna help and decrease the amount of rent everybody's paying. Because if the landlord knows that they cannot get more than $1,000 for this one, or if we know the going rate of increase, meaning like for every year your rent, the going rate cannot be more than 10%. Guess what? Everybody's going to
rent control down here in Jersey, at least, it's based off the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. So it's an adjustable rate based off the economy,
inflation.
Which is fair. But then you can be like, okay, the CPI can be rigged, but please continue.
Well, in Massachusetts, rent control will impact mostly everybody, not just certain buildings, because there are some buildings I know in Massachusetts right here, we have buildings who already have rent control. What they have is a collective bargaining agreement where the landlord cannot go higher than 3.5% or 2.5% annually. Typically, those contracts were written after tenants in the building fought long and hard to get a collective bargaining agreement. And they were able to negotiate a long-term, I think I had mentioned that earlier, with the landlord. And now the landlord knows for the next 5 to 10 years, the tenants who are in this building who've been here, they've been grandfathered in. Their rent will not go any higher than 3.5%. Now, new tenants that come in, yeah, sometimes they get to pay higher rents. But with what we saw in Massachusetts, we've been fighting for rent control in such a way that rent control policy would cover everybody, except for a few. Let's say if you are on an occupied building, I believe in Massachusetts right now, the rent control legislation that we're fighting for will exempt four apartments, like buildings with 4 apartments, meaning like owner-occupied buildings with up to 4 apartments. So those landlords will not be governed by the rent control policies that would be in place. But at the end of the day, let me tell you, monkey see, monkey do. If the corporate landlord down the street cannot go up more than 10% or more than 2.5%, or the CPI, Consumer Price Index inflationary rate of 3.5%, let's say this year, the CPI is 3.5%. If the corporate landlord who has 500 apartments across the street cannot go up more than 3.5%, you think the one across the street from that landlord with 4 apartments is gonna say to a tenant, your rent is going up 20%? How are they gonna be able to do that? It's gonna be impossible, because they know that that tenant is gonna do, they're gonna say thank you very much, goodbye, and then they're gonna wait for an apartment that's empty across the street, and they're gonna go across the street. So protecting tenants with rent control is gonna benefit everybody. Trust me, it's not like the few apartments who are exempt. Somehow they're gonna be able to do whatever they want. They're not gonna be able to do whatever they want, because monkey see, monkey do. And there's nothing, they will not be able to get away with it, because nobody's gonna stay in the apartments if they go crazy. And many of them have been able to charge higher rents, because if you have a three-family home building, and you're like, oh, I'm charging $1,500 for my 2-bedroom, right? And then you heard across the street that corporate landlord is charging $2,500. What are you gonna do? Again, we are all greedy by nature. you're gonna say, "Oh, I need to go charge at least $2,000." But if it's the other way around, there's no way you're gonna be able. Again, going back to Walmart charging $2 for, I don't know, a slipper, and then you as a small mom and pops try to charge
Yeah, charging
$10 and
six.
see how
Yeah.
long you last. That's why many of them couldn't last, because Walmart came in and drove them out of town. But I mean, in terms of like the benefits of being able to do rent control, being able to protect families, and for them to be able to have predictable rent increases, you can budget. I mean, I know the fear and the anxiety
Oh
that
yeah.
these families have had to deal with when you come home after a long day of work and you get a notice under your door saying like, "Dear Mr. Will, your rent that you've been paying for $1,500 is not going up." Can you imagine? $2,000,
I
$2,500.
I was that person a few years ago. I live in Hoboken, New Jersey. We have rent explosions just as much as
Yeah.
anyone else. I think in the top 100 cities, like most expensive city in the country, Hoboken was number 7, and we're a square mile. Put that in perspective. So yeah, when I found that out, it was like a month or two before, like I was gonna get that notice of my rent going up, and I was
Mhm.
terrified. I was panicking every single day, just waiting to figure out how much it was, because it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when I found it was gonna go up. And like I saw these Facebook posts online of people saying like my rent was up like 200%. I'm like, oh, what the
My
is gonna
gosh. Yeah.
like I was terrified, and I ended up just calling I couldn't take. I ended up calling the building manager. It's like, how much is it gonna go up? They're like, we don't know for sure, but we think it's gonna be like 5.5%. I was like, woo,
Oh, yeah.
oh, thank God, right? But like,
I know.
it was such a sigh of relief. And I don't
Yeah.
know if that building was rent controlled. I don't remember, but it's
Yeah, because you
stressful. It's so
yeah,
stressful.
it is stressful. Housing is a human right. I know it's not the law, but housing ought to be a human right, because at the end of the day, health housing is health. It impacts your health. Housing impacts your social environment, your skills. Housing impacts everything. Your mental health, definitely. So when you're saying like you were feeling anxious, you had anxiety over how much my rent is gonna go up, you're losing sleep. I know folks who
Hmm.
cannot sleep at night. They have to work. Can you imagine having somebody who's going to your job to take care of your, I don't know, work? Maybe they're working in the healthcare industry, or maybe they're taking care of your children as teachers or teachers' aid,
Yeah,
and
that they drive the
they spend
bus your
all
kids go
night.
to school in. Yeah.
Yeah, they spend all night worrying about how much their rent's gonna go up to. And then now they're in front of your kids, they're losing patience, they don't have patience, they don't have the loving spirit that they ought to have, because every night they're losing sleep. They cannot sleep. They're thinking about, oh my gosh, am I gonna be able to stay in the neighborhood? Am I gonna have to drive 2 hours away from work now? And many times, if they move that far away, you might lose a great teacher, you might lose a great worker, because of the fact that, listen, your workers, they have to sleep someplace at night. And home is where they sleep at night. And if the home is not in check, if they're not able to have safe, habitable, and reasonably priced rent to deal with, guess what? You're not gonna have the most effective employee. You have high turnovers. So it really impacts everything. Really, housing ought to be a human right. That's why we were talking offline that in places like Vienna, and I know you had mentioned socialism. This country is a capitalist country, but a country like Vienna, Austria, in Vienna, they have social housing, where again, they had similar issues that we have here today. At one point, two people would rent the same room, because they would have it in the morning and the other one will have it at night, because the price was so expensive. Prices in terms of like to rent was so high that two different individuals were renting the same room. Because if I work at night, I could come and sleep in the morning, and you work in the morning, you come at night. Can you imagine? It's really difficult to
No.
have to deal in that situation. However, the country decided, you know what, this cannot go on. And I believe in the early 1900s, like 1920, 25, I had read an article about that. They decided, you know what, we need to have social housing where nobody pays more than 30% and even lower, and the quality of life has improved. As a matter of fact, people are going to Vienna to look at those buildings, to take a look at the different models that even those who are fighting for rent control here in this country have gone overseas. I know I met a gentleman who's done research about that. He's gone to Vienna to really research, to study the model, to see if that model could be duplicated here in the United States. Because we are the richest country in the world, right? World-class leader.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
So they say.
Yet,
are we though?
our people are homeless. Our people are losing sleep at night. The teachers who are teaching your kids are going to work restless because they had not slept the night before, worrying about how much their rent is going up to every year. So we need to do something about that. Everything is expensive, and you could go without lobster. You could go without fine dining, right? You could go without a vacation even. You could go without
I already go without those things. So yeah.
But can you really go without a home? Can you go without a home?
I could not do the social housing. I'm going to be honest. I don't think that would work in America because people are just the culture. Culturally, I don't think Americans would be able to handle that because we're too materialistic. We like owning things. We like buying things.
You don't know what's in it for us to not have to be owners, because we've been sold that. I mean, like, if you go to business school, you go do work. I mean, all your life, they say like the American dream is home ownership. What are you going to do? You're going to do what you know, right? Yeah. The American dream is home ownership. But what else could be the American dream? Being able to sleep at night knowing that you live in a home, because your apartment is also a home, right?
Yeah.
Your home, you live in a home that you can stay in for as long as you want, and you can build community because you're not a rent burden. You're not working 2-3 jobs. You can get to know your neighbors because your neighbors actually get to see you on Saturday because you're in the backyard or you're in the common parking, the parks. You all hanging around together. You having barbecues together. Because you are not rent burden, and this is long term. You're not going to be pushed out. You're not going to get gentrified. You're not going to get displaced. This is long-term housing. Listen, we are simple. Human beings are very simple. The only reason why we want to build equity is because we're worrying about the future. How am I going to be able to retire? How am I going to be able to do this? Because once upon a time, again, the same corporations who are paying us low wages today used to have pension plan, but Reagan came around, and before Reagan even, no more pension, no more defined benefit plans. So you don't get any you don't get any pension plan. Guess what? Now you're worrying, when I'm old, I'm not able to work 12 hours, 15 hours. How am I going to survive? Of course, we've been told that the only way you can secure your future is to make sure that you own a home that can build equity, or make sure you have a 401k. And all that stuff, because nothing is going to be given to you anymore. What if we start changing that and really give people options and better benefits and better opportunities to save money because they're not rent burden, and to be able to own a home if they want to, but not put all their hopes and dreams for future security in the home, because that's what's happening right now. A home is no longer a place where you enjoy family and have fun and build community. Everybody's thinking of a home as this commodity that they get to build up, I guess, they get to have so that they can have future peace of mind and accumulate wealth, because there's no other way to accumulate wealth right now. Everybody's fighting for that one piece of the pie, home ownership, right?